Welcome, all my fellow Washington brethren and sistren. I am your man and resident Washington football team fan, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on the Washington Football Report. So, looks like we got some more business to attend to. I'm dressed in all black like the Omen, so you already know what that means. I'm back like cook crack on what's supposed to be an off day. So you guys already know. You already know what's good. I told you, if some news broke, you'd see this face all up in your space. Well, I'm back. So apparently there are no days off with this organization. They were supposed to have a day off, but with this football team, there are no days off, as we all know. And so the Washington Post decided, and this had to be strategically planned, because they could have dropped this yesterday. They could have dropped this 2 days ago, but they decided to drop it on an off day when the team didn't have any activities and they wanted to give everyone a chance to digest this story when nothing was going on with the football team on the field. So I think this was a planned hit. Nonetheless, it doesn't take away from the actual material in the article that the Washington Post published today about owner Daniel Snyder and more sexual misconduct activity within the organization. Now, this is a bit of an extension of the Washington Post article a month ago or so, stating that, over 15 women in the organization that used to work, I should say, for the organization, ex-employees, were talking about sexual misconduct within the organization and essentially a culture that had run amok. And that story was published, but because of all of the rumors that had run rampant, which Daniel Snyder is now suing over, it really lessened the impact of what was a very damaging article. So I felt like he got away unscathed, essentially, because of the fact that that story took on a life of its own. And you could even argue, and some of you actually brought this up, and at the time I dismissed it, but it makes a lot of sense when you think about it now. Maybe people inside the building started those rumors to make that story so big, a larger than life entity, that when we finally read it, it seemed kind of elementary and inconsequential. So whatever the case may be, the Washington Post then expanded their net, because remember that first article, and the difference between the first article, because some of you are saying, hey, this is the same shit that they talked about a month ago. Why are we talking about this again? And let me start by saying this before we even get into the meat and potatoes of this article. Let me say this, because I know there are a lot of you out there that feel this way, and I myself at times am among that population. But this is something we have to talk about. But to those of you who say, look, I don't care about this. I just want to talk about the team and the action on the field. I don't want to talk about this negativity. I understand. I get it. But it's a part of what you signed up for as a Washington football team fan with Daniel Snyder as the owner. If you don't like it, it's a problem, and I can't solve that problem for you because Daniel Snyder's the owner. And until he's no longer the owner, I've got people that still ask me to this day, what has Daniel Snyder done wrong? Why does everybody not like him? And it's stories like these. It's the way he's handled this organization for the last 2 decades. It's the way he's run this organization into the ground that is why people don't really have any affection for Daniel Snyder. And so I understand you want to steer clear of the negativity. It's hard to do that when the guy at the very top of the organization is a villain. And he's done everything to vilify himself. Like, this isn't a media-driven story. It's not something that has been created so that people can not like Daniel Snyder. He's brought this on to himself. That being said, I understand your grief and all the people that don't want to hear the negativity. Look, there's nothing you can do about it. At this point, this is what this organization has become. We've just got to continue to try to navigate our way through this. Now, will this have an impact on Daniel Snyder moving forward? We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but let's get to the article and back to what we were talking about. The difference between this article and the one published just a little under a month ago or so by the Washington Post is that this one actually has Daniel Snyder implicated in the article. Remember, the last one, there were no ties to Daniel Snyder. It was really, focusing on a couple of guys, well, a few guys, and Alex Santos, who was fired, also Larry Michael, who retired, and another employee or so that was no longer with the organization anyhow and had left, I think, back in 2018. At the end of the day, this article does actually implicate Snyder, and it does go a step further to launch accusations of extra DVDs that were put together by the video staff, and they were told to do this for Snyder so that he could present it to some of the other people within the organization and boosters and things of that nature outside of the organization. But a lot more damaging, stories have come out in this article. And now let's see what the Washington football team elects to do with this information. This one is a little bit harder to kind of dodge and navigate if you're Daniel Snyder, because your name was actually in this one. And again, if you ask me, honestly, do I think this is enough to force him to sell? The answer, once again, is no. All right. However, these things keep stacking up on top of each other. And you keep getting these, and again, a lot of this stuff, it's not like this is new information in terms of this happened 2 weeks ago or this happened last year. A lot of this stuff is from 2001, 2004, 2008, 2010. So a lot of this stuff is in the past, and he can just continue to say, hey, we're changing the culture. All right, we're changing it now. That's why we brought in Ron Rivera. That's why we made the hire of Julie Donaldson. That's why we made the big move to hire Jason Wright. This is why we're changing the culture. This is why we are taking steps to be a forward-thinking organization. And we're bringing in minority hires to come in and diversify this organization and get it back on track. He can start pointing to things that he's done now to try to kind of lessen the impact of things done in the past. So from that standpoint, I just don't think it's enough to get him out as owner. However, this one is a little bit more damaging than the last because once again, his name is actually in this article and there are some accusations thrown his way. So again, unlike the last article where he could just claim, hey, I didn't know, and and he didn't even apologize. That was the part that probably pissed. And it's even in this article where a lot of these women felt like they needed to step up. Even ones that were either anonymous in the last article or didn't speak up at all in the last article felt compelled to speak up now, because this article has over 20 women, something along the lines of 25 women that the Post spoke to for this particular article. And there are new names in this article that step up to the plate and make their accusations known publicly, because they were so turned off and disappointed with the reaction to the last article by Snyder and company. So they felt like they needed to get out there and put their stories out for public consumption, because there was no remorse, there was no accountability the last time the article was put out. So they felt like they needed to then step forward and really force the issue this time around. So you can't claim you didn't know or you weren't a part of it, because he's actually ingrained in this article. So again, going to be really interesting to see how the Washington football team handles this. Hey, Jason Wright, welcome to the team. All right, you're in there, buddy. Get in there and figure some shit out. Now, again, I get it. He's on the business side, but this is going to affect the business and the bottom line. So, hey, he had to know what he was signing up for. Okay, he's not an idiot. Jason Wright understands what this organization has been, and he knew it was going to be a large undertaking. So I hope he's prepared for the shitstorm that's coming his way, because one indeed is coming, and everyone involved is going to have to do their part to try to minimize the damage here. The women in this article that used to work for the organization, whether cheerleaders or interns or women that worked within the organization at some point that felt like they were sexually harassed or mistreated, all said that they want an independent, all right, investigation of this organization. They don't want Snyder to hire someone like he did the last time these accusations were made when he hired Beth Wilkinson. They don't want that. And they're right for not wanting that, because how can you assume that a true investigation, an unbiased investigation is being done and launched if the person that is doing the investigation is on the payroll of the organization that they're supposed to be investigating? It just doesn't make any sense. And that's why I don't think Snyder is in danger here either, because the league hasn't stepped in. Had the league stepped in prior to this article and said, we're going to do our own investigation, and they had found this, then we could say, man, Dan is on the ropes here. I mean, this rope-a-dope, at some point, the ref's going to step in, start waving the arms, and this thing's going to be over. But the NFL has chosen to go with a laissez-faire approach. They're like, hands off, man. I want no parts of this. They said they're handling it. They've hired someone to do an investigation. She's highly respected. And, Beth Wilkinson is in bed with the league because she was the one protecting the league, and she was the one going to bat for the league as their attorney with the concussion situation. So they respect Beth Wilkinson, and they're not going to step on her toes. And then they went out and they hired Julie Donaldson, a female in a high-ranking position in the organization, the highest female-ranking position within the organization. And then they go out and make a monumental hire in Jason Wright, the first black NFL team president. And so all of a sudden the league is looking up and saying, look, they're doing some things over here that suggest the tide is changing in Washington. So while this article seems damaging, and it is, I don't think it's enough to get Daniel Snyder out. However, this one does implicate him. So maybe the league now has some ammunition to be able to say, all right, guy, enough's enough. You got to get your act together. And if we get one more of these, we're going to actually put this to vote in front of the rest of the owners. Again, I don't anticipate that happening. But like I said, it's very interesting to see how they handle this. And what's probably even more interesting now is how the league goes about handling this. Do they just treat this as an extension of the first article and say, all right, we've heard most of this, and so we're going to let Beth Wilk, and that's what I anticipate happening. The league issuing a statement pretty much saying all the stuff in this article is very damaging and damning, and we don't condone any of this, similar to what they said the last time. And then they're going to say at the end, the Washington football team has hired someone in Beth Wilkinson who we trust is going to do a thorough investigation of this organization and their culture and report her findings back to us. And so we're going to allow the process to run its course, and then we will take action at the end of that process. And so that's all I think you're going to get from the NFL, is some kind of statement issuing that they're going to allow the process to play itself out. And I think this, much like the last article, is going to be talked about. Everyone's going to have their opinions, and it's going to cast a negative light on this organization again. And Ron Rivera is going to have to answer questions about this the next time he steps to the podium. Some of the players may have to answer some questions. So again, it'll be a distraction as always for a limited time, and then they'll move past it and we'll get back to the action on the field. But if you ask me, this is just another step in that process of getting Daniel Snyder out as owner. I think it is a process, and I think if he's not careful, and look, again, all of these transgressions happened in the past. If there is a new transgression, that's when you start saying to yourself, all right, Dan's skating on thin ice. And at what point does Daniel Snyder get tired of dodging this mud that's being slung his way, dodging these bullets, trying to avoid stepping on another landmine? At what point does he say, this isn't fun anymore? You know what I want to do? I want to take my money and run. I invested, whatever amount of money in this organization when I initially bought back in 1999 with an investment group. I've quadrupled my money. The value of this organization has skyrocketed. I can walk out of here with $3 or $4 billion and call it a day and let somebody else inherit this problem that's become just very worrisome to me and my family at this point. At what point does he get to that boiling point and say to himself, this isn't worth it, let me just take my money and run? Or does he never get to that point? Because to me, he seems like an egotistical guy that wants to stick it to everyone, and I don't see him selling. So unless they force him out, and I've said this all along, unless he's forced out, I don't anticipate him selling. Now, Kevin Sheehan on his podcast says he feels like at some point Daniel Snyder's going to end up not owning his team in sub capacity, whether it's because of being forced out by the league or him selling. I think he's leaning more towards the selling aspect than him being pushed out by the other NFL owners. But I don't see either of those scenarios playing themselves out. I see Daniel Snyder looking to remain Washington football team owner as long as he possibly can. And I just don't see him giving in to any of the demands of the public or giving in to the cries of a lot of the fans in this fan base who want change. I just don't see him really giving two rats' asses about any of the things that are going on outside of his little bubble. And I think he's going to continue to be insulated. I think he's going to continue to act as if nothing here was done wrong on his part. I don't think he's going to take any culpability. I don't think he's going to be accountable for any of this. I don't think you're going to get any apology. I think you're going to get a lot of the same, if you even get a statement from him this time around. He spoke a lot the last time. I think he's made changes since then. I think he feels like that's enough. And you may not hear from Daniel Snyder this time around. He may push Jason Wright out there. He may push Julie Donaldson out there. He may push, hell, for all we know, he may push Doug out in front of this thing. He's done it before. I know he's not going to push Doug in front of this one. He would more rather push Jason Wright in front of this oncoming train than Doug Williams. But at the end of the day, this is another black eye for the organization. But as I've said before, aren't you used to getting punched in the face already? Like, at this point, just go get a bag of ice, all right? Go get you a cold press, sit down, put the cold press on, apply ice, put a little Vaseline on, apply more cold press, make sure you press it really hard and firm, smoothen that swelling out and push it down, and you'll be fine. You've done this before, okay? Lick your wounds, sit down, the swelling will go down, the black, blue, and purple will subside, and we'll get back to football on the field eventually, okay? But on our day off, it feels like Friday all over again. How in the hell do you get more negativity on your day off? We're the Washington football team, that's why. So, anyhow, let's get to the comment section, see if there's anything out here before we get out of here. I didn't want to keep you too long on this one. I do see a super chat, so I'm going to read that, and then we'll probably just go ahead and exit stage left. But, more news on a day when there wasn't supposed to be any Washington football team news. Go figure, right? So, let's get to this super chat. DMV fan 123, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, DMV fan 123, who writes, how can anyone in the organization look in Dan's eyes after this? Hell, how can Roger Goodell? He has to go, Louie. How can anyone in the organization look him in the eyes if you really believe this article? And this isn't the first time we've heard people say you can't call him Dan. You have to call him either Sir or Mr. Snyder. You can't look him directly in his eyes. You can't eat in front of him. If he's coming down the hall at the same time you are, in this article they said you were directed to turn and walk in the other direction. Like, what is this guy? What kind of tyrant is this guy? Now, again, this is all from the past. He could have changed. I highly doubt it. But I'm just telling you what the article said. And how can anybody look this guy in the eyes? I just don't know how you can feel like working for this guy is a good idea. It's the reason why the minority owners who all want out have found it tough to get market value for their shares of this company, of this organization. Normally, when minority owners are looking to get out, you've got a line wrapped around the stadium of potential suitors trying to get into the NFL business. You know how prestigious of a club it is to be a owner, whether you're a majority or minority shareholder? Do you know how hard it is to get into that elite club? And if someone is offering up their share, whether it's 5 or 10%, in this case it's 40%, and you can't find people or a person that is willing to pay what they're looking for to get into this elite club, because think about this. When you are in as a minority owner, it's easier if someone else is willing to sell the majority of a ownership. It's easier for you to transition from minority owner to majority owner of an NFL franchise because you're already in this exclusive club. So and first of all, if you're a minority owner, do you know how profitable it is? If you're making 5% of what these guys are getting off of this TV money, off of ticket sales, off of merch, and all the stuff that comes with being an owner, if you're getting just 5% of that pie, you're making a boatload of money, an S-load of money. Not to mention if you're getting 10 or 15, or in this case, if one person were to buy all 40% of what they're selling, you're making a good chunk of change, but nobody wants to work alongside Daniel Snyder as a silent partner. Okay? It's such an attractive position to be in as an owner of an NFL franchise, but working as a silent partner alongside Daniel or behind Daniel Snyder in the shadows is such a turnoff that these guys can't even get market value. And so all of this is fascinating to me. I don't understand how anyone would want to come into this organization. But I've heard this before as well. Daniel Snyder is one hell of a salesman. He can sell guys. There's a reason that Joe Gibbs came back for a second stint. There's a reason he was able to coax Mike Shanahan to come here, a two-time Super Bowl winning head coach. There's a reason he was able to get Ron Rivera to buy in despite all of the chicanery that had gone on here prior to Rivera getting to Washington. So he's reportedly a tremendous salesman. He got Julie Donaldson to sign up for a position that she already knew was going to be a shit show before she got here. Jason Wright, who is a smart man, you've heard him speak. He's no dummy. He understands what he's walking into. He got him to sign up for this position. Obviously, he's told them something that makes them confident that the tide is turning here in Washington, and maybe it is. But the outward perception is that it's the same old dysfunctional Washington football team that it's always been. And articles like this kind of further that narrative. And it's hard to change the culture when you're fighting. It's almost like you're fighting a losing battle because you take 2 steps forward and then an article like this comes out and it slaps you back 3 steps. And so you're trying to make up the ground that you felt like you had already started to make progress on and then some to try to catch back up just to break even. But as long as Snyder is the owner, these are the types of articles that are going to come out. And let's be honest, too. The Washington Post has it out for Daniel Snyder. I'm not looking to give any Daniel Snyder any outs, and I'm not trying to side with him. All right. And I don't have any sympathy nor remorse for him. All right. So that's not what I'm looking to do here. I'm not on his side. I'm not an ally of Daniel Snyder. From all accounts, he is a terrible owner. And I don't know him personally, so I don't want to say he's a terrible person. But I can tell you there's 21 years of data that suggests he's a horrendous NFL owner. All right. He may be great in the business world outside of this, but as an NFL owner, he's terrible. He's the worst. Let's call it what it is. Let's call a spade a spade. He's the worst. And until he's gone, there's probably going to be more of this. The only hope we have as fans, and I've said this already, is that Rivera turns this thing around on his own. If he can somehow manage to do that, and many have tried, all, in all caps, ALL, all have failed. So at this point, while I am optimistic, and I told you, cautiously optimistic is how I approach everything with this organization. Never do I just jump head first, deep in with this organization. Never will I do that again. All right, not until sweeping changes are made, and I'm talking about all the way at the top. But I can tell you this much. The only way we have a chance to get out of this thing, out of the abyss, this darkness, this pit of darkness in the abyss, is that Ron Rivera somehow, amid all of this turmoil, dysfunction, and tomfoolery, is able to rise above and produce a winner. I'm not saying it's impossible, but Joe Gibbs wasn't able to do it, even though he did go to the playoffs 2 times in 4 years, but it wasn't pretty. It wasn't easy either. Mike Shanahan wasn't able to do it. Lord knows Jay Gruden wasn't able to do it. And now Ron Rivera is going to get his opportunity. And we'll see what happens. In Ron, we trust. I've told you, I'm sticking to Ron's plan. Ron's plan. But boy, does Ron's plan get increasingly harder when he's got to sit down in front of the media on a Zoom conference call, and the first 3 questions are going to be aimed at him about this situation. That gets old quick. It does. But again, Ron knew what he was signing up for, and I said this. Ron knew what he was signing up for. He knew he was coming to an organization that had a lot of shit going on, and always has some shit going on. Even on your day off. So, in any event, we're the Washington football team. So, as I've told you guys before, man, there's nothing new here. Nothing to see. Keep on moving. There's nothing to see here, guys. And so, with that being said, I don't think there are any more super chats. There are no more comments to be read, so we'll get out of here. But we'll see what happens with this situation. I don't think anything's going to come of it, but we'll see what happens. We'll see how the team decides to try to navigate this one. I'm more interested in how the league, because I already feel like I know how the team is going to address this. I don't think you're getting another statement from Snyder on this. I think he spoke a ton the last time. I think he feels like he's spoken enough. And so I think he's going to allow someone else to get out in front of this train. And you're not getting an apology from him. You're not getting culpability. You're not getting accountability. You're not going to get a guy that is remorseful for any of this. So I already think I know how the organization is going to handle this. They're going to deflect. They're going to talk about the sweeping changes that have been made. And they're going to talk about the new direction that they're going in and how they don't want to focus on the past. I want to see how the NFL decides to go about this. That's what I'm more intrigued by, because if they put out the same statement that they put out last time, which is what I'm betting on, which is, hey, we're going to allow this process to play itself out. The organization hired someone to come in, do an independent investigation. We're going to allow that process to play itself out, and then we'll react to the information that we receive based off of the investigation done by Beth Wilkinson and her team. So essentially, I think they're going to just laissez-faire, hands-off approach, let the Washington football team handle their own mess, and I think this is just going to kind of get swept under the rug with all of the rest of the bullshit that we deal with as fans and with this organization. But it bears mentioning because Dan's name was in this one and he was implicated, so there could be a little bit more aggressiveness and a more of an aggressive tone from the league here, being that Dan was implicated in this one, but we shall see. I am a Washington football team fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Washington spirit will never die. Washington spirit will never fold until we meet again. Hail to our beloved Washington football team. Again, I don't know how this is going to play out, but I've given you my 2 cents. Can't wait to read all of your comments down in the comment section on how you feel like this needs to be resolved. Again, I don't think Dan is going anywhere, so don't bank on that. I don't even think that the league is really going to even reprimand him here. I think they're going to continue with the line that they have set in the sand already, which is, hey, independent contractor or independent evaluator coming in to assess the situation and the culture, and Beth Wilkinson will leave it to her and see what she finds, which she's on Daniel Snyder's payroll. What do you think she's going to find? I mean, seriously, what are we talking about here? But that's nor here nor there. Remember, if you haven't already done so, what are you waiting on? Sub up the channel. More great content coming your way. Also, make sure you hit the like button and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a thing when it comes to this channel, like this impromptu emergency stream that we just did. Don't want to miss those. If you're available to catch it, why not jump up here and chop it up with your man Louie T. But until next time, and again, I'll say what I said the last time, unless there is something else, you'll see me Thursday night for the Washington Football Report Live, 8:30 p. Looking forward to doing that. We'll probably talk about this a little bit more. I'm assuming more information will come out about this, and maybe some reaction will come out from the league or the team, and we'll have a little bit of that to discuss. We'll also talk about practice. They'll be practicing in the stadium at FedEx Field tomorrow, just helmet and shells, but still should be a lot to discuss there as well. And we'll talk about a lot of different things, including the roster. And I want to talk about some of the players and what they had to say in some of their interviews. And we'll also talk about the segment, and I'll have some more photos for you guys inside the pictures and more. So looking forward to that. But if something else were to happen and something else were to arise, then you would see this face all up in your space. But until then, you guys, have a good one. Stay safe. Take care. I'll see you guys next time.
LouieTeeNetwork.